This is not for you. Nothing personal, but it's not. This is for people with fight, resilience, and minds tougher than their bodies. They're not interested in being the best. All they care about is besting themselves. They're no nonsense, no hand-holding, no sugar-coating. They're in pursuit of something bigger. Their team behind them, a smile on their face. If that sounds good, then maybe we were wrong about you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Norseman Live. I have been waiting to say those words for the longest of times. My name is Philip O'Connor, and we're delighted to be back with you here live on social media ahead of an interesting evening where we're going to talk to some sponsors. We're going to talk to some people on the X-Tribe World Tour. We're going to talk to race general manager Doug Oliver, and we're also going to give away some prizes and the last two coveted places in this year's Norseman 2022 race. It's been a tough time, as many of you, I'm sure, who are watching this are going to be aware. Back in 2020, of course, we had to postpone the race. So the people who won their places in the draw then had them postponed until 2021, and then they were postponed again until 2022. And we've been discussing in the background a little bit about what Norseman has been in the time of the pandemic. And what we came up with was that this has been a leap of faith. And if you think about it, much is made of the drop into the unknown at the start of the Norseman race. That jump from the back of the ferry and into the cold, dark waters of Eidfjord that signifies the beginning of the journey that is Norseman. On a return there this year, we are more aware than ever of what that means for each of us as individuals, for this race, and indeed for the human race after everything we've been through in the last couple of years. Now, when we jump into the water at Norseman, it is in a sense the beginning of something of a paradox, a race that we can only complete by ourselves together with about 200 others. We are, for the most part, entirely self-reliant, and yet none of us could make it to Gaustatoppen without the assistance of our support teams and of the race crew and of the stewards who make this race happen. The moment we step on that boat in the darkness, we also assume a duty of care towards one another and to nature. Littering on the course or acting in a way that puts ourselves or others in danger will result in the end of our race through disqualification. And this is no strange fact for anybody who's ever been on the race. But more than anything, we know that there's no places to hide on the Norseman course, nor are there any shortcuts. The fastest way to get to where we want to go is to put our heads down and start swimming or pedaling or running, and to keep going no matter what. These last few years, as I said, have been difficult. We've had the pause buttons pressed in all our lives, unable to go backwards or forwards, as we waited for science to try to interpret what Mother Nature has been trying to tell us during this pandemic. Now, the Norseman is lucky to have such great and committed sponsors, supporters, and competitors. It would have been easy for any one person in any of those three groups to just pull the plug and walk away, but nobody did. Instead, the opposite happened. People asked what they could do to help keep the race going. In the beginning, every aspect of our lives was affected, but in different ways. In Norway, strict lockdowns were observed. In Sweden, less so. We learned new terms like social distancing, and we were asked to stay at least 1.5 meters apart from each other. And in Finland, they wondered, why so close? Everything changed. Work changed, family changed, training changed, life changed. We began working from home, only seeing other people on screens for days or weeks or even months at a time. We avoided meeting elderly or vulnerable family members, conscious that the greatest favor we could do them in the last 2 years was to stay away from them until the pandemic had passed. In the beginning, before we knew what it was that we were facing, gyms closed down, competition stopped. There was no games, there were no races. Sport on TV went from being an endless cavalcade of live events to a parade of dusty memories. Those in the Norseman bubble are no strangers to training alone, and the rest of the world joined us on treadmills and watt bikes at home. All of a sudden, those who thought we were weird for spending our Saturday mornings sweating over our power output were alongside us on Peloton, cheering us on. Gradually, we learned what kind of a foe the virus was, and we could go out and run in the forests and along the beaches again. Slowly, life returned to a new normal, but it never quite made it, as new variants kept jabbing their finger on the pause button. We were getting back on track, but there was still no finish line in sight. Those who had won a coveted place at the 2020 Norseman race saw their entries postponed until 2021, and then until 2022. Finally, it looks like their turn is about to arrive, and it's been a long time coming. In 2020, the Norseman race was reduced to just one man, as Alan Hovda took on the course solo. A sign that no matter what, we were still here and that we would be back. In 2021, a scaled down race took place. That is, if it's even possible to scale down something as epic as the Norseman. Like the race itself, Mother Nature has been using the pandemic to remind us of both our insignificance and of our immense power, our fragility and our ability to overcome seemingly unsurmountable odds. She has forced home the point that even the greatest individual achievement, that of surviving and thriving in adversity, also requires a team effort. So too with this year's race. We return hopefully gloriously and at full scale, humbled and motivated in equal measure. Now, more than ever, we will be required to take care of ourselves and each other on and off the course. Only a fool would try to predict the future, but the brave have the courage to at least try to create the future they want. We are the brave. We've read the signs and decided that the time to make a comeback is now. On the first Saturday in August, we press play again. We will gather in Eidfjord just as we did before, the course stretched out before us, the finish line once more in sight. The fjords and the roads and the mountains await. The weather will be what it will be. And at the top of the mountain, we will once again look Mother Nature in the eye and we'll say, we're back. We've learned. It's good to see you. What next? Now, my friends, it might have been Norseman that really put triathlon in Norway on the map, but a lot has happened since then. Over the last 10 years, Arild Tveiten has turned Norway from a place where they asked, do they do triathlon that far north, to an international powerhouse. It's been brewing for a few years, but 2021 was the year the Norwegian men's team did a clean sweep of almost everything worth winning in triathlon worldwide. There you go. One of the high points, I suppose, in triathlon history, and in particular in Norwegian triathlon history. And with me now is Arild Tveiten. Arild, can you just take me back to that day in Tokyo when Christian Blumenfeld won the gold medal for Norway? How did that feel for you?
Well, hello, Philip. Hello, everyone. Oh, yes, that was the introduction. Tokyo that day was really, really special. We went into the race with a lot of confidence. We actually felt that we were ready to perform and ready to fight for the gold. And it was a very strange feeling going into the race in the arena in the morning, because it felt really relaxed, ready, and it was not so much stress. But of course, it was a huge relief when you saw that it's going to happen. And you saw that Christian was crossing the finish line first. I was standing 100 meters away from him, and because I was on the course trying to do some get some time splits and so on, and you saw he won. You saw a big relief, but you were on the other side of the course and want to come to the right side to meet him and hug him and everything, but it was impossible because it was too difficult. It was a very a lot of mixed feeling, and not mixed feelings, but a lot of emotions going through your head. But overall, you were big relief and very happy, and yeah.
It wasn't just the end of a triathlon that day. For you, this was the end of probably 10 years or more of work to get a Norwegian triathlete to that point. So if we wind the tape back just a little bit, how did you become involved in this idea that, okay, we're going to make this a sport in Norway. We're going to make this something big. We're going to have an Olympic champion.
Well, it's quite of a long story. The federation actually had made a strategic plan. We said that in 2020, they were supposed to have medals in the Tokyo Olympics. And that plan was actually decided that, okay, we're going to go for it. And then they hired me afterwards. So, and I was in the beginning, I was actually not so interested in working with young athletes and young people and everything. So, and they asked me a lot of times, are you sure you don't want to come for a training camp? Because at that time, we already had a youth team. We had a coach, was the father of one of the younger athletes, and it was someone who tried to build up something. So after a while, I said, okay, yes, I will go to this weekend camp and see if I like the people or the athletes and everything. And then I met Christian for the first time. It was also the first time I also met Gustav and Lotte. So it's actually quite funny that when I was there, that was October 2010, it was 3 out of the 4 Olympic athletes in Norway was at this camp in Oslo. And 2 of them had never done triathlon before. So that was a kind of strange feeling, and we were coming into it. It was quite new to everyone. And I was at that time, I'm doing triathlon myself. I was a little bit involved in the Ironman, and I find doing longer stuff for coaching athletes, doing longer stuff was what was I thought was the I was into. But then I met this guy, and especially Christian the first time. I was like, wow, maybe there are something there, because one of the first things I was looking after when I look for an athlete is the willing to do the work. And they were really, at that time, really hardworking young athletes with really big ambitions. I think almost at the same time, Christian actually said that he wanted to have an Olympic gold medal. So yeah, so that was the beginning. And I started officially a few months later working with Christian. And as I said, that he was very ambitious. Very early, he said, I want to have an Olympic gold medal. And at that time, he was, of course, not at the level you can say that, okay, for sure you will do it and you are on the right path or anything. We actually didn't know where we were and what we should do to get there. But we just started up step by step, and yeah, you know now how it ended in the Olympics. So yeah.
What was your assessment of the state of the sport in Norway at that time, Arild? You mentioned, okay, there was obviously talent, right? Because 3 of those athletes that you met that weekend went on to become Olympians. But what was the infrastructure like for them? What were the training possibilities like? What were the competitions like that they would have had access to? Did you have to build all that from scratch in Norway?
Almost. It was in the beginning, we actually had nothing. And one of the things that maybe is part of our success, but when I started working with the team, I was hired as a sport director, and mostly the sport directors don't do the coaching part, but we didn't have any coaches. So I said, of course, I need to do the coaching part. And I also needed to do that because all the triathlon clubs in Norway didn't have any structured training for young athletes. So I need to do that. So all the athletes were in the Olympics has never been ever trained with a triathlon club. So the infrastructure for that was really bad. I remember the races we did the first years. They were actually going races at Olympic distance with the older athletes. They were able to, let's say, they were allowed to draft on each other. That we were making some strange rules just to make them be able to race, because draft, legal sprint and super sprint races was not any races of that in Norway at that time. So we also quite early needed to get them out, so they needed to learn how it was to race outside and to learn how real triathlon was, because their first races was actually, as I said, non-drafting races at the Olympic distance. They were 16 years old with the age group between 30 to 50. So, and of course, the young athletes were really, really fast in the water, but at that time, they were not especially good on the bikes. So they were on their normal road bikes, and then suddenly all the age groups come passing by with the time trial bikes. And so it was, we should be happy that we are here today, because the infrastructure and it was not so much that was ready for them to race in Norway. But of course, that was something the federation took seriously, and we tried to build it up. But it was a quite hard work the first year. So we did almost everything, more or less.
How did you find it in the beginning, Arild? Because like I'd imagine if I'm a cross-country skier in Norway, right, I'm going to have sponsors queuing up outside my door to give me money if I have talent, right? But at that stage, for triathletes in Norway, it wasn't a big thing. You know, it was kind of like just it could be any sort of minority sport. How hard was it for you to get the resources? Because I mean, and when we say resources in sport, we almost always mean money. You needed to get money. You needed to get, to be able to fund these things. How hard was it to access that for you?
Oh, it was of course hard, and the first year for me, when I was employed by Federation, I was employed in a 50% position, so we didn't have the money for me working full time. But one thing we was working really hard with from the beginning was working with the Olympic Committee, try to get in there, try to show them that we were hardworking. National team, we have young athletes, but who really want to perform, but we have no big results at that time. But suddenly we started to get some results. I get to know the manager of the Olympic Committee, and he gets to know me, he gets to know us. We have what you call a coach in the Olympic Committee who get to know our sport and our athletes, and then we get funding for me first, so that I can start working full time, and then we get some money to work on the development project for the younger athletes, because at that time they were 16, 17 years old. So it was step by step, and with that money we were able to start working toward the first Olympics in Rio, and we never have any big sponsorship money, but we have been quite lucky that the Olympic Committee always been able to give us some money each year. But it's still a kind of a struggle that we don't have all the funding we should have had, but of course it's better now than it was in the beginning.
What difference has it made when Christian comes home with that gold medal? Because, you know, for people watching this, it's probably not a surprise because they kind of knew what you were doing. They knew what the Norseman had become. They knew what the X-Tri World Tour had become. So people involved in the sport weren't surprised at all. But I think people outside of that, as I was saying to you off air before, that I know people who are going, how did Norway win this? And I was going, okay, y'all weren't paying attention. You know, this is always going to happen. So what does that mean now? When you go and knock on the door of the Norwegian Olympic Committee and say, look, I'm going to need some money for a training camp, is it much easier for you now? Are there more sponsors lining up?
It is of course much easier to get funding, but the system in Norway is like that. It's not that you are just getting funding because you have a gold medal. So we get a little bit better funding, but not dramatically more from the Olympic Committee. But that is also good because they also believed in us when we were young and didn't have any money. So we are really happy they are a big part of us. When it comes to sponsorship, we see it's quite tough still. And we have actually trouble still getting sponsor, and we are working hard on it. And I think we will manage it, but it's a little bit tougher. The market in Norway, just not for triathlon, but for all minor sports, if you're not doing cross-country skiing or football, it's really difficult in Norway. It doesn't matter if you have an Olympic gold medal in triathlon, but we also have other sports like rowing, who is a sport that has producing Olympic medals the last 40 years. They are still struggling getting sponsors. So it's, I think that is something that I don't like to say, but Norway, we have 5.3 million people living there. So the market for Norway is quite limited. But of course, we hope that some of the international brands because we are working mostly international, could see that we are bringing something new into the sport, and that we should be an interesting project for many sponsors.
Do you find that Norwegian sports fans, I mean, we're speaking now just before the Winter Olympics, and I know that everybody in Norway, I know their Facebook and their Instagram and their Twitter is going to be alive now cross-country skiing. So they are huge sports fanatics. Have they taken triathlon to their hearts now after Christian's gold medal?
Yes and no. Of course, he get much more attention in Norway, and more people know about triathlon than him, but it's still, I don't see so huge difference in Norway. The media hype was big around the Olympics, but after that, it's been actually quite quiet. So it's not like if you're a cross-country skier, you can read about them almost every week all year round. For triathlon, we were really big the day we won the Olympic gold, and the next day until the Norwegian won another Olympic gold medal in Norway. So we have a few days in the highlights in Norway, and after that we are back to normal again, more or less. Yeah,
it's 3.5 years maybe before they start talking about you again in the next Olympic cycle. Let me ask you, Arild, because again, like this, we talk a lot about developing athletes and developing triathletes. You spoke about how quick they were in the water when they were younger, but they weren't so good on the bikes to begin with. How do you develop them? Like, what do you have to do to make them better? When you get these raw, talented 16, 17-year-olds, what do you focus on to make them Olympic athletes?
Wow, that's a huge question. First, I don't think we have really talented athletes in Norway. Of course, we have because of the results, but I don't believe in talent. I believe in hard work. So when I meet the young athletes I met back in 2010, I looked more to the work ethics. How do you want to do the job that is needed? And when I started at that time, I was a little bit unsure how you should coach a young athlete. But I strongly believe that you need to have a right mentality and you need to do the work. I don't think you can say that we don't train too much, but we train much harder than everyone else. I don't think that you will succeed. You need to have a big volume, and you need to balance the volume in a good way. even if you are a young athlete. So, and for me, it's also about try to make an environment when you put these young kids together that find an extremely enjoyment and fun about doing what they do, because I want the athletes to think that when I'm out training on training camp 35, 40 hours a week, that you feel that, wow, we are doing what you love most in the world. So you have to have the genuine love for the sport and to work hard and do the work you needed to do. So I think some of the successes, of course, Christian was a kind of a leading man because his work ethic has been and always been extremely strong. He's really motivated and he's prepared for the training session. So he in many ways set the standards, and I as a coach always follow up on that. And then we see that all the others are coming, and it's more about creating the right environment, have the right people to do the work they're needed to do. And then when you have that, you can think about the structure and how to train, how to prioritize swimming, bike, running. How do you build that? Because you obviously train and coach an athlete really different when he's 16 compared to when he's 25. So it's a lot of development process in that too. And I said that in the beginning that of course they were quite good in swimming, especially when you compare to an age group athlete. And they were maybe not so strong in bike, but at that time they were 16 years old. So what they did, because they wanted to perform at Olympic distance, draft league format, they were doing a lot of swimming and they were doing a lot of running. And cycling was a little part of an triathlete when he was 16. But now when Christian is 27 and Gustav 25, of course the bike is much more important, and which we obviously saw when they are being racing their Ironman races. But in the beginning, that was the less important thing. Yeah, that's the long answer.
How and well worth listening to. How much of the training in that case is individual? Because there you kind of had a sort of an obvious structural problem where they hadn't got as much experience on the bike, and the answer was more time, more coaching on the bike. But in the new generation now after a decade of work, what do you do? Do you do sort of, okay, this is what you need to be good at, this is the whole breadth of it, or do you work with the athletes individually on the things they need to do?
I would say that we always have been working individually with the athletes, but in the beginning it was more like a group environment. Most of the training we did together, the training program was quite similar. We would do some individual things we needed to do because not everyone could tolerate the same amount of volume and things like that. But now we are going much more individual, and especially the year we are now, when we have, of course, Christian and also Gustav, who want to focus on the Ironman, longer stuff. And then we have the rest of the athletes, of course, preparing for the next Olympic cyclist. So one of the big things we said that would be different from 2020, leading up to 2020 and now leading up to 2024 is the bigger and more individualization of training. But they still train together almost every day. And it's not that they're doing totally different stuff, but because the main principles in training and what we believe in is the same. But we are using much more testing. We go to the lab, we see what each athlete needs to develop compared to the others, and then we do that adjustment in the training. But that's something we almost see in when they do the interval, the hard sessions, then we'll see we do have the individualization. But if you go out, everyone needs to go out for long, easy rides. It's not that one is doing on Wednesday and one on Thursday. We, of course, do it the same day on training camp and do it together. So, yeah. So it's a mix.
Yeah. How much of a role does sports science play in this? I know Jürgen Mello has done great studies about cold water swimming to do with Norseman and that. Like, do you have access to an awful lot of data that helps you in your work as you develop these athletes?
Yes, we have. I would say that the sports science part is playing a huge part, especially the last years. When I started working with young athletes, I tried to be quite specific, go using heart rate monitor, we started using power meters and lactate measurement and all things like that. But when they get better and better, we see that we need to dig more into that. And one of the things that we actually see that triathlon as a sport in science-wise is being up till now quite underdeveloped. It's more the old school kind of training. And that is something we want to bring further on. And we have a sports scientist with us who is fantastic. He's really the guy who looking into new science. I want to go further, learn more, go deeper into different stuff. And that is playing a bigger and bigger part, I would say. But it's still like in the end, you need to do the training. And most of the training you do is just the basic stuff. First, you need to do the basic stuff right. You need to have the right environment, and then you put in the science to have the last extra percent. Because if you want to fight for Olympic gold medal or go sub-7 for Norwegian, you need to do something better than the rest of the world. And you need to try to find the thing you need to do to be the one who's leading the race, instead of who's following the others. So I think that is some that describe the Norwegian team and the mentality in a good way. We want to be the driving force for the development of the sport.
Where does this training take place at the moment, Arild? Is it in Norway, or are they training at altitude in Italy, or where do they spend most of their time as a team?
Okay. Right now, we actually have split them up. We have 4 athletes in altitude in Sierra Nevada, that's in southern Spain. And in 2 weeks, the rest of the team will go to Alicante, that's the sea level camp. And after that, we'll meet again in Sierra Nevada in March, April. And we have a racing season. Then we go to altitude again in Pont-Romeu in the French Pyrenees in the summer, July, August, and then the rest of the racing season. So many of our training camps during 1 year, we normally have 3 altitude camps of 3 to 4 weeks. And then we have 1 camp at sea level. So that is quite normal structure. But the altitude part of the training is important for us.
One last question, my friend, and thank you very much. It's been fascinating to get the story behind this great Norwegian success. But the secret is out now. People now know what you're doing. And do you have a target on your back now? Is Christian one of those guys who people are saying, we've got to do what he did and get as good as he did? And will you be able to repeat these results in the Olympics in 2024 and 2028?
We are, of course, working for that. And I'm quite sure we can do that. But of course, we know that the race will be harder and harder. And it's a lot of countries working really, really hard. And a huge respect for all the athletes in the world who try to do all they can to try to be at the best for the next Olympics and also for the Ironman races. So, but of course, we want to be, as I said, the driving force. We want to stay one step ahead of the others. And for me and the rest of the team, that is the big motivation. It's not like we think, oh, we are good and now we can relax. We are even more hungry to show that we are able to still do the work, to still do the process, to still do the improvement, to stay one step ahead of the others. But we never know if we can do it, but we think that we still have the hunger and desire to be the best. And yeah,
we all know that Christian is the best. He's the reigning Olympic champion on the men's side at the moment. But just before we let you go for this evening, could you just tell us some of the names of the triathletes from the next Norwegian generation that we should be looking out for over the next couple of years coming into the next Olympic cycle?
Yes, we have an Olympic team of 6 athletes. Of course, we have Christian, who of course won the Olympics. We have Gustav Iden, who was 8 in the Olympics. We have Kasper Stornes, 11 in Olympics. We have the female side, we have Lotte Miller, 24th in the Olympics, but we also have a young athlete called Vetle Thorn. We really targeting him towards the next Olympics. We have Solveig Løseth, the female, for the mixed relay team. We also have Stine Dale for the mixed relay team. We have a young guy called Cedric Kristoffersen and Sebastian Wernersen. So we have almost more 6 on the Olympic team, but we have 3 more. So in total, 9 elite athletes we have been working really well with, who will be the next generation. Of course, we have a junior team, we have a development team too, but there will be the name to look after the next year. So, yeah.
And if I could ask you one final question, what are you most proud of over the last decade? Apart from Christian's gold medal at the Olympics, what are you most proud of, Arild?
Oh, I am, of course, I'm very proud of the Olympic gold, but I'm actually, when I think about it, when we have 4 athletes in Olympics, they started the sport and I started working with them in 2011. And I've been able to keep the team together, keep the athletes together, and most of them, we are losing some of them on the way, but in terms of how we have been as a team and if we are working together as a team, that is something I'm actually quite proud of. I've been able to do that. I've been able to have so many of these young athletes in the sport for so long, because it's a lot of other things that you can do today instead of try to be a professional triathlete at the highest level in the world. So, and I also think that I'm make in a way a kind of impact on them in their future, in how they are as a person. So yeah, that is for me the most important thing actually.
Arild, congratulations on your wonderful success over the last decade, and we look forward to the next decade of success. That is Arild Tveiten joining us here this evening on Norseman Live. Thank you very much indeed, my friend. And if you want to know more about the depth of talent that is available in Norwegian triathlon, you would have seen that in our race in 2021. Of course, the travel restrictions because of COVID meant that we couldn't have people coming from abroad. So it's pretty much only Norwegian athletes that took part in 2021. So let's take a look back at the slightly more limited race that we were able to stage last year.
One thing is untold. You've been told that Norseman is one of the world's toughest triathlons. But there's one thing that remains untold. You've been told about swimming through a deep fjord, a fjord continually renewed with freezing cold mountain water, 400 meters of complete darkness below you, large waves crushing against your face. You've been told about cycling across 5 mountain plateaus, over 3,000 meters to climb. Cold, gusty front winds, winds that can throw you off when you're not aware. You've been told about the run, how it ends with climbing one of Norway's most iconic mountaintops, Gaustatoppen. Each step and each stone brings you hope during the endless uphill. You've been told that being a Norseman isn't just about the race. The race day only marks a new year in the Norse calendar. Yet one thing is untold. They won't tell you what really makes them ready. They won't talk about what's hidden in the core of Norsemen. That they have a mutual dependence with nature. Some days nature will pull you out with the mightiest of sights. Every moment so craftily and carefully put together, piece by piece, but usually never seen or felt by anyone. You can see the heaven, the earth, and everything that fills it. The complex interplay between clouds and mountains. The smell and moist of a new morning. Water and air against the skin. Some days, nature behaves differently. An immense force pushing you seemed to want to hold you back, fighting against you. Testing if you can tolerate all its forms. All is dark, cold, and unfamiliar. Your will and mind get strengthened, and your senses sharpened. The mountains are always waiting, but usually no one comes. However, every day, one kind of people choose the way of Norsemen. Prepared to give all that they have. Always ready to fight through. This is how a true Norseman lives.
There you go. Some wonderful scenes there from the Norseman 2021, the limited race that we could manage to get going there. And it wouldn't be Norseman Live, ladies and gentlemen, without a visit from race general manager Dag Oliver, who's joining me to talk about the holiday quest that we had last year and to make a draw for 2 tri-suits, one for a man and one for a woman. Dag Oliver, speaking from quarantine in Norway, I believe. How are you today?
Yeah, we just caught COVID here at home. So yeah, I'm in my daughter's little office here, and happy to be able, with everything going on in the world, to host small events like this. Even so.
Yeah, I don't know whether to congratulate you or commiserate you on getting COVID, but you seem reasonably healthy to me, my friend. So we'll get going just in case the symptoms do start to show themselves. Dag, I suppose the best thing to do might be to explain what the holiday quest was and what people were doing in the run-up to Christmas last year as part of the Norseman initiative.
Basically, this was our second time doing the holiday quest. It's just been a way for us to try to incentivize our friends around the world to stay active in a season where it's easy to lean back and yeah, eat. So we're letting people pick up some elevation. So the quest is climb a Norseman in X number of days. This year we started mid-December and ended, or started early December and ended mid-January. So a total of 4,921 meters, which is basically what you climb in one day during the Norseman.
Yeah, in the space of only a few hours, if you're in any way lucky and you do make it to the top of the mountain there, all right. How many people, was there a lot of people took part in it, Dag?
We had just over 600 people signing up. And just over 400 actually finishing the quest. So it was a really good turnout, and everybody pays 10 euros to participate, where we donate the majority of that on to Doctors Without Borders. So there is a little check going over there as well in just a couple of days.
That's fantastic. That's several thousand euros. What's that? 6,000 euros minus whatever expenses were involved there. So that's a fantastic donation to be making to the Doctors Without Borders charity. Now, unfortunately for those who did take part and who did complete the course, there's no black t-shirt for that, but we do have 2 Trimtex speed suits to give away. Is that right?
That is right. And for those who had a look at the previous section, the speed suits are what actually, according to Trimtex, is what won the Olympics. So it may not make everyone an Olympian, but at least it's a cool garment to wear when you race.
I will be ordering mine before the end of the show this evening, because if there's anything I need, it's a Trimtex speed suit. That will give me some sort of a chance of making it through there. How are we going to go about drawing the 2 lucky winners, Dag?
I've got a spreadsheet. We've split it up between men and women. So this is the test of our draw tool, which is called the Wheel of Names. Mm-hmm. So I will share my screen and just get this over with.
It's all very transparent as usual. I'm delighted to hear it.
We try our best.
So there we go. The Wheel of Names is on your screen at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. Race General Manager Dag Oliver is going to draw the names of the men's and the women's winners of the speed suits. There we go. The tri-suits, I mean.
These are the men, and the challenge here was just to log a climb in the week before Christmas. So just over 100 people or 100 men who logged that. So with that, we will start the Wheel of Names.
There we go. Let's start it off. So as you can see there, the wheel is rotating away there randomly. So there is your winner, ladies and gentlemen. Grete Waitz from Norway has won the men's suit. The Wheel of Names has spoken, and Kjetil, it could be Kjetil, I'm not sure, but Grete Waitz from Norway has won the men's suit. Super.
And The women's field leading up to the holidays was slightly smaller.
That increases the chances if I know anything about mathematics, which I don't.
Most definitely.
Excellent.
So we'll run the wheel again for the ladies.
There we go. Let the wheel of names pick the winner. Spinning away there. Slowing down, slowing down. We have our winner, Anne Gjengedal Hellesby from Norway, another Norwegian winner there as well.
And there we go.
Superb. So the Wheel of Names has given us our 2 winners from the Holiday Quest Challenge. We'd like to thank everybody who took part in the Holiday Quest, and especially everybody who paid the €10 to take part, because that money goes, or almost all of that money is going to be going to Doctors Without Borders to continue their great work around the world. And of course, we would like to thank our friends at Trimtex for those 2 tri-suits that we were able to give away as part of the challenge. Is this something we're going to be doing next year again, Dog? Do you think that will be back?
We should definitely be ready to do more climbing next year, but I think we have to up the ante, and we definitely need to make an incentive for the girls to keep riding all the way through the Holiday Quest. Extreme Triathlon needs more focused women, so we'll do whatever we can to increase the odds there.
We certainly do, and we will do all in our power to get them involved. We shall move swiftly on. Thank you very much indeed, Dag Oliver, General Manager for the Norseman race. He's going to be back a little bit later on now, but I'm going to be joined by a very interesting trio now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Norseman, and not just their attempts to make this a better race, but also their attempts to make the world a better place. Our Norseman title sponsor, Zalaris, is not just engaged in helping Norseman become a better race, they're also engaged in several other corporate social responsibility projects. And in this segment, we're going to talk to a 2 1/3 time Norseman finisher Hans Petter Mellerud, as he has been described, a multiple Ironman winner, a cancer doctor, and 5K Your Way co-founder Lucy Gossage, and Active Against Cancer co-founder Helle Arneson. Good evening all, and welcome along to Norseman Live.
Thank you so much, Philip.
Hi.
Delighted.
.25 meters, and as a result, I finished towards the end of the pack in both 18 and 19, but I made the cut, and I also managed to get a black t-shirt. And I was also able to swim at 1:29, which was actually quite okay compared to the cut. So missing the cut was not really an option that I considered. But in 21, with 12 to 15 meters per second headwind and pretty large waves that you might have also seen in the video, this 21 was not for me. So, but however, I completed the swim with the worst 2 hours and 21 minutes of my life, and that was between or after the 2:15 cut. And I was taken out of the race. Probably the hardest blow that I actually ever had in my life. I've never been used to being pulled out of any type of competition from being in the special forces when I was younger. And I've basically never been used to that, but nevertheless, and it didn't help being a title sponsor and the CEO of the title sponsor. I was pulled out of the race, and so was it. So now I know that I can endure long swims, and I'm back to learning swimming basics and hope I can improve significantly before this year's race.
I have to say, Hans Petter, I have the height of respect for you for one, for taking on the Norseman as a challenge at all, but secondly, for coming on here and telling that story, because General Manager Dag Oliver that we just heard from there, he was the man who decided you were coming out of the race. And not only that, it's like, you know, if I was the title sponsor, I would have told him, okay, I would have torn up my check and told him where to go. But you've actually said that you'd be interested in continuing to sponsor the race, and we're extremely grateful to you for that. So one of the great sportsmen, one of the great athletes to take part in the race. Lucy, you have your own experience of the Norseman, isn't that correct?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was one of my last ever long distance triathlons. Kind of a little jolly, as I say, in my final year. It was it was pretty awesome.
And was that in 2019 that we ended up having a little chat at the top of a certain mountain in Norway, was it?
I think so, yeah. I just remember going up the hill and you can't really look around, and then I just got to the top. I was like, oh my god, it's amazing, it's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, Mum and Dad were up there, and Hella was obviously my support crew.
Yeah, and we're actually still waiting, I think, on Hella to join us. She popped in a little bit earlier on there when we were testing all the equipment, but we seem to have lost her for the time being. Hella, are you there at all?
I'm here.
You're there, fantastic. There she is now. Super. We have Thomas in the background, and he's making sure he's just producing these guests like rabbits out of a hat for me this evening. Hella, if I could just ask you about your relationship. Obviously, you were part of Lucy's support team that year, but what's your relationship to the race in general?
So I met Lucy for the first time when I started running with her from 10K away from the top. But
that's a hell of a date right there, Helen.
It was. But this was Hans Peter's great idea, as Solaris is also a sponsor of Active Against Cancer. So he is good at connecting the dots and, seeing the links between Lucy and her 5K Norway back in Britain and Active Against Cancer in Norway. So he thought we should meet, and he actually wanted one of our ambassadors to accompany Lucy, but I had this great idea that I could do it myself. So
that's a great idea at the bottom of the mountain, not so much at the top, right?
She was awesome. She was absolutely awesome.
I think that was the year actually we had a cameraman who decided, you know what, how hard can it be? I'm going to run up the mountain and film as I go. I don't think I've seen that guy since. And I think I found his Nikes in a bin at the bottom of the mountain on the way home. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the wonderful Robin Donna who's been part of that production. But
no, but the fun thing was, I'm not 20 anymore, but I still think that I'm pretty fit. So I thought, how hard could it be to follow Lucy the 10 last K of her Norseman? I watched the race several times before, and I see almost every participant kind of walk up that mountain, and I can walk that mountain. So I thought, I knew I had to accompany Lucy for 5K, the last part, but I think, what the heck, she needs support from the breakout point where her parents are not allowed to accompany her in the car any longer. So I thought I'll do it from there. And I saw these guys, the first guys, they came actually walking, and I said, well, this is the way to go, so I can do this. But Lucy, she came running. And it was a sunny, great day. I didn't warm up. I thought, I could do that on the way. So when Lucy kind of came running through that tent, and I just had to say, hi, Lucy. That was the first time I met her. And
wait for me.
I was exhausted, after 2K. I said, what am I supposed to do? She was running faster than me, at that point. So I kind of had to turn my head and I was thinking kind of, what can I do? And all of a sudden, and luckily, there was a huge car coming up behind us, one of these caravans, huge caravans coming, and I hitchhiked. I just jumped into that car and I waved to Lucy, see that Stavsro. And then I had my break in that car, and that saved my life and Lucy's way to the top, because then I got a small break, and I was kind of fit again to climb the top with her. But, you know, she was tough there too. So I kind of tried to persuade her into walking because, you know, it's easy to twist your ankle, Lucy. And I just thought, I tried that one. And she just goes, Hella, I run when I can. Okay.
There you go. She's a power case. You see, you should have known. You should have seen the signs when you heard 5K her way. You should have been prepared for that, my friend. That's hilarious. Well, if I could just ask the three of you, maybe Hans Petter, if I can go back to you a little bit. You were the spider in the web here. You put this little trio together. How did the three of you start working together, both for Zalaris, but, you know, this idea of making the world a better place? Because there's several separate strands that we're pulling together here, right?
Yeah, so we in Zalaris have been, as Helle said, working with Active Against Cancer since about 2012 as a way of motivating our employees to stay active and at the same time donating to a good cause, which is then fighting the cancer cause. So when we had an opportunity to also support Lucy to come to Norseman in 2019, we thought that it would be the natural one to, you know, to bring them together. And well, since Helle said yes, she's always very sporty in that sense, saying yes. And then the match was done.
Lucy, could you tell me about your background a little bit on this idea you had of 5K your way and how you started that?
Yeah, I mean, I always think this Norseman, it was, you know, it was one of the final races of my career. And it was, I always felt quite selfish being a professional athlete because it's all about being quick. And actually I was only full-time for 2.5 years. I worked part-time as an oncologist. And Norseman kind of, it was something I'd always thought about, but actually it's when I spoke to Dag and he said, we've got a link with Active Kreft, so Active Against Cancer, and that just, you know, we think there could be a connection. And I always believe in having a metaphorical cup of coffee. And at the time, because of my background in triathlon, there's lots of evidence about the benefits of being active for people living with and after cancer. So I was in the early stages of setting up an initiative in the UK, 5K Your Way, Move Against Cancer, which is really simple. So across the UK, we've got park runs across the country. Pretty much every town has got one. They're free timed 5K events that anyone can turn up to. So we thought, well, why not just get a group of people living with cancer down to a park run, and, you know, just get people together, get the peer support, find a way for them to be active and spread the message that actually being active is good, because there's still a lot of myths about that. And people think if you have cancer, you need to rest. So I'd started it in Nottingham, and then it had kind of just started to spiral, and we'd got through social media, we're starting to get more and more groups across the country. And yeah, then Hans Petter and me had a chat, and actually I didn't meet, as Helle said, we didn't meet until we got to Norway. It was just a really lovely connection, that triathlon, because what Active Kreft does is so much bigger than what we do. But actually over the last, I mean, when was it, 2.5 years, Move Charity, which runs the 5K Your Way, has really grown. And so we've now got I think over 70 groups across the country, and we've got a really good online rehab program for young people living with and after cancer. We've got a podcast, we've got educational resources, we've got workshops that we're running online. And yeah, I'm not paid by the charity, I just help lead it and drive it, kind of because I'm so passionate about it. But it was just so nice that Triathlon gave us this link, and I got to meet Helle and see the amazing work that Active Kreft does. And Zalaris, of course, has supported us hugely by donating some athlete slots who fundraised for the initiative, which we are eternally grateful, because actually Zalaris for us came on board when we were tiny, and that support in the early days was really pivotal for letting us kind of get to the stage that we're at now.
If I could just ask you, before I go back to Helle, as an oncologist, Lucy, why is it so important? What are the physical benefits to somebody either recovering from or who has cancer? What are the physical benefits to being active, to being physically active while you're going through your treatment and after you've had your treatment?
So it's an evolving field. So we know for definite that it makes people feel better. It makes people feel less tired. it reduces symptoms of anxiety, reduces symptoms of depression. But we also, there's accumulating evidence that actually it reduces the side effects of treatment, improves the way that people tolerate treatment, but actually it might also impact on the cancer biology. So potentially even slow the growth of the cancer and reduce the ability of the cancer to spread. And then obviously after cancer treatment, more and more people are living a long time after cancer. So they're either cured of their cancer or they're living with incurable cancer that can be controlled for many, many years with drugs. The side effects of a lot of the treatments that we use are really toxic. And we know that being active and exercising can reduce the long-term morbidity. And then kind of the final strand is before surgery, there's really good evidence that if you're due to have massive surgery, and I really like the analogy of preparing for a marathon. So if you're going to have really massive surgery, like lung cancer surgery, the fitter you are beforehand makes a huge difference to how quickly you recover. And actually the science is really interesting. So even over just 2 weeks, you can make a really big difference to how quickly people recover. And a phrase that I love is, you know, and we can all relate to it. You don't enter a marathon or you don't enter Norseman without training for it. The demands of massive surgery is exactly the same, if not more, than a marathon or Norseman. I think this might have come from you, Helle, actually. And you know, why would you go into surgery without trying to be as fit as possible? So it's a really exciting field, but the general evidence, the general kind of consensus is that people don't talk about it. And the work that we do, the work that Active Macraft does, is pivotal in kind of breaking down that stigma.
Helle, of course, you are the co-founder of Active Macraft, Active Against Cancer in Norway. How big is the organization? How many people can you help? And how did you come to start it?
Yeah, well, the start is pretty fun. Well, I just wanted to run the New York City Marathon, and it was hard to get a spot into that race as well. So I was told, you know, and somebody told me that I should run for a charity called Fred's Team. So I Googled that and I learned about, you know, how great Americans are in order to combine big sporting events with fundraising. And they fundraise a lot. And I thought, you know, in Norway, we don't do anything like that. But people travel, people compete, people take part in big sporting events here as well. So I thought maybe the time is right to start something like that in Norway. And being in New York City Marathon mode made me think of Grete Waitz, of course. And I just read in the paper back then that she was diagnosed with cancer. So that's how it all started with that idea, and I called Grete after a while, and she was all in. So we had 3.5 years together before she passed away in 2011. And of course, you know, teaming up with her means that our foundation should have something to do with physical activity. And as Lucy says, you know, the research now is evolving and has been for the past 15 years and giving us more and more evidence and faith in that physical activity and personalized physical activity is medicine for cancer patients. And I love what Lucy is saying, because that's one of my favorite words these days is prehabilitation. So that's the preparing for what you're going to go through. So also working on trying to motivate most people to be more physical active is also an important part of the work, because we need to get prepared, not only for cancer, but all life itself and all other illnesses and diseases as well. So
yeah, I think, you know, in one way it's fairly obvious what Lucy was saying there. The stronger and the better you feel, the more chance you have of surviving these things. Hans Petter, can I ask you, why is it so important to you and to Zalaris to support these things with your time, with your money, with your energy?
You know, as I said, I think it's one is for our own good that we help motivate our employees to stay active. So that in addition to being more resilient towards like cancer, I personally believe that that also makes you say more fit at work. And in addition, of course, it's when you meet these ladies, Helle and Lucy and all these other really inspiring people really rooting for this cause, you can tell that our team as well, they find supporting this higher causes in also our day-to-day work. That is also really motivating them to stay with the team, and I think as a total we become a better company.
Is there a lot of people involved in the triathlon side of Team Zalaris there?
Yeah, I'm not sure we have a long queue that want to do Norseman yet, but
they saw you being pulled out of the water last time. Went, maybe
yeah,
not.
exactly. I'm not sure if I'm the big motivator there, but we see there's a lot of interest, and you know this is also the real cool thing that we see. I see that with also what I do and what we do, we actually motivate a lot of people to actually be active. So we get, you know, positive feedback from suppliers and partners that we work with, that they've initiated the programs in their companies to, for example, motivate people to come down in weight, be more active, and be more healthy. And that even inspires me to do even more about it. So I think all in all, it's like a really positive topic and something good to that is different from just the daily business life.
And I think, can I just jump in there? I think for a lot of the people that I work with in the hospital, actually seeing people with cancer get out there and be active is really inspiring. And, you know, Norseman it's inconceivable to most people. Actually running a 5K to a lot of people is inconceivable, but walking 1K, everyone can do. And if you can walk 1K, you can build up. And there was an incredible lady called Sue who she sums up what 5K you're always about. So she saw a flyer in the hospital when she was 70, and she'd just been diagnosed with bowel cancer that had spread to her liver. So it wasn't a curable cancer. She'd never run in her life. She was 70. She couldn't get out of bed to go to the toilet, but she saw the flyer. And she joked to her family, she said, when I get out of here, I'm going to do this. And a few months down the line, she came up to me and at one of the 5K Your Way groups, and she said, oh, you're my hero. And I said, well, you know why? I didn't remember meeting her. And she said, because you're the reason I'm here. And she told me the story about how she'd seen the flyer and she'd started to walk, and then she started to run, and she'd just run her first 5K. And she said to me, when I think about when people ask me how I am, I don't talk about the bad stuff. I tell them I've started running. And for her, she sadly died about 10 months ago. But for her, for the 2.5 years that she had cancer, being active was her crutch, and it gave her something positive to focus on. And she inspired so many people just by getting out there and moving. And I don't think we can underestimate that hope that seeing other people with cancer being active gives to people when they're diagnosed and they feel that life has been taken away from them.
Yeah,
it's actually what I love.
And a friend of mine's son, 14 or 15 years old, very sporty. He was recently diagnosed this summer with leukemia, and immediately into treatment, fell terrible, lost a lot of weight, lots of muscle mass, and really gray, and did not want to go out amongst his friends, basically locked himself into the room. And then by some coincidence, actually, he was let into one of they call them breathing rooms, like the pusterom, it's like fitness centers run by Active Against Cancer in one of the hospitals. And he was let in there, and after just a few times exercising again, he came back home and was like a total new guy, you know, back into business, wanting to go back with his friends and play outside again. So, you know, hearing these type of stories, we can tell that we really make a difference. And so it's even, as I said, it inspires us to just continue that.
It's what I love about the name Active Against Cancer. It's this idea of taking control, of doing something yourself, of not just lying down and letting this happen. Helle, how can people in Norway get in touch with Active mot kreft if they need your support, if they need to find a breathing room? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that, you know, all these stories that we see, that Lucy see and Hans-Petter sees, you know, when we visit the fitness centers that we've built, just makes us so sure that the political work that we're trying to do, namely to have personalized physical exercise included as part of the cancer treatment plan, as part of standard care. That is what our main goal is, and we're getting closer here now. We had really good and positive signals from the politicians and from the Department of Health the other day. So I'm really positive this will happen pretty soon in Norway, and that's something to be really happy about. Our centers and the information about these are found on our website, aktivmotkreft.no. We also have, and that's also nice to mention, that after the pandemic hit us, we also made these exercises digital. So we're sending 3 workouts per day, 5 days a week, from our website. So that's also worth looking into if you want. But we have fitness centers established in 16 different hospitals in Norway, and working on establishing them in the rest of them. So aktivmotkreft.no is the website to visit.
And Lucy, 5kyourway.org is where people will find the information about 5K Your Way if they're in the UK or if they want to adapt it to their own country. As I said at the very top of this, it's not just about making the Norseman a better race, it's about making the world a better place. And thank you to the 3 of you, not just for everything you've done for this race and for taking part in it, but for everything you're doing outside of it. There we go. That is Lucy, Helle and Hans-Petter. A fantastic story right here on Norseman Live, and we hope to see them again soon, either in Eidfjord or at Gaustatoppen. We are going to move on this evening, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a great race, even in the limited form that took place in 2021. And Thomas Brun was on hand there this year to talk to some of the participants, and you can hear some of their voices in this clip.
Oh, it was a lot of emotions just when crossing that line, and it's been a dream of mine since I was a little child. It was such a hard day and long day, and it was a beautiful race, and when I got into Zombie Hill, that's my favorite terrain. I like to run upwards, and I just try to keep my legs going and to not walk. I got a good pace that I managed to keep almost all the way to the top. So it's been some years since I was here at the Gaustatoppen actually. To have that finish just after 10 hours of racing, it's unbelievably hard. When you were in the race, you couldn't feel that you were so tired, but when you got up there, then it was just totally empty. Yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable.
This course is epic. There's mountain, fjord, and Gaustatoppen. We get everything during one day.
When I saw the finish line and my family was up there, I was so relieved and so happy that I managed to get all the way up to Gausta. So I was just really exhausted, but really happy.
I joined the Norseman in 2018 myself. The swimming is my really weak part, and I feel it's terrible. It's a really mental challenge to get through the swim. The bike is fantastic regardless of weather. The Hardangervidda is just an experience. The run is always a terrible experience, but the finish is worth it all. So I felt like I was just the king of the world, and that feeling of including spirit and this good mood, and I just thought this is something for us, and if we have a chance we will be a sponsor of Norseman.
The main difference between a normal Ironman and this race, the Norseman, is mainly the natural environment, the course, the views you have in the race, and also the challenging conditions that are present some years. The whole experience in itself is so much bigger.
This is a cool race, but it's also a little bit stupid. I did my first race and only race in Norseman in 2005. It is still the only race that we have not been able to finish at the Gaustatoppen because of bad weather. When we got the message that we are not allowed to up to the mountaintop, I was quite happy actually. But when I look at it now, it's really bad that you haven't done the real Norseman race with a mountaintop finish at the Gaustatoppen.
What I love about the Norseman competition is the amazing scenery and the ability to do it together with your supporters and the people you care most about, which really brings the experience to another level.
What's happening in my head during a long-distance triathlon really varies over the course of the race. And of course, when you're racing, even at your fastest for 11 or 12 hours, you have a lot of time to think about things. For me, maybe a key tip is to remember that even in a kind of bad patch, that might last about 15 minutes. 15 minutes out of a 12-hour race doesn't mean a lot. So you have to just accept that those phases might happen and trust that they'll be over soon and keep going forward.
I want to do my best. And I want to stand on the finish line and knowing that I absolutely did what I could do and that I have nothing left.
Der livet. Det som gjør livet verdt å leve. Det over. Jeg er ikke sikker jeg gjør det her i morgen.
There we go. That was some of the voices from the race of 2021. And the race general manager, Dag Oliver, is back in the picture with me again. Dag, how many athletes took part in 2021? Can you remember?
We had 103 starting athletes.
And well, obviously Hans Petter was pulled out of the water after the swim. Did everybody finish at the top of the mountain? Did everybody get a black t-shirt last year?
To be honest, 2021, I can't remember having that many athletes not finishing ever. And that was with only a third of the normal number of athletes starting. So, but the conditions were really nasty.
Yeah, I heard they were pretty horrible. All right, yeah.
Swim was bad. The headwinds across the plateau was just horrific. And then at finish line, thick fog and 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Us going up there to scout angles and organize for a COVID-safe finish line was utterly unnecessary, as there was just one person there at a time, and that was the finishing athletes, and we just dragged them into a tunnel in the mountain. So
and sent them back down again. It was difficult circumstances, but I suppose if ever there was a race that was going to sum up the last 2 years, the difficult circumstances, that was it. But we live in hope, ladies and gentlemen. For all of those of you watching at home, for those of you who've waited patiently, it's over 2 years probably since some of you were given your place in the 2020 race. And there are 1 or 2 people out there now who are going to be joining us for 2022. Because if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Oliver, we have 1 place for women to give away this evening, and we have 1 place for men. Is that right?
Yes, we do.
Super. You being the general manager of the race, you're the man in the driving seat now. You're the man with the legal and moral responsibility for all these things. But I'm guessing that we're going to be bringing up the wheel of names again. And I believe that this time around, we've had a lot of women who are eligible for this particular spot in the race.
Yes, we have more than that was eligible for the tri-suits. So let's see here. We have a total of 56 women in competing for a starting slot in 2022.
So a little, around about a 2 to 1 chance of getting there. And we see names from Norway, France, America, Latvia, Denmark, New Zealand of all places. A couple of New Zealanders there.
Spin the wheel.
Let the wheel of names do its thing, and the wheel is spinning. And again, this is a randomizer now, so it's there's neither Doug, Oliver, nor I have any ability to influence it. And it is Amy Middleton from the United Kingdom, Lucy's countrywoman there. Amy Middleton from the United Kingdom. Congratulations. Get your tri-suit on. You're going to be on the ferry in Eidsfjord on the first Saturday in August. Get ready, get training, and get ready to go. And we will see you there. The Wheel of Names has done its thing. The first name out was from the UK. Dog, we will select the list of names of men that are taking part. How many names have we got from the men's side this time?
Just hold on one sec.
And were these all from the Holiday Quest, or where did we get them from?
These are all from the Holiday Quest.
See, that's why it's worth doing the Holiday Quest, ladies and gentlemen. Pay the €10. The money goes to Doctors Without Borders. And this is, you know, I'm not going to say it's the easiest way to get a place in the race, but given that it's so hard to get a place in this race to begin with, it's always a good idea to give yourself as many chances as possible. We're loading up the database of names now from the Holiday Quest to see. There you go. There's a hell of a lot of names in there. We won't even be able to see. We have Germany, Switzerland, Spain, Poland, Canada, Norway, France, the US, the UK are all represented there. So slightly less chance for the men, I suppose, because so many men actually did compete the Holiday Quest. But maybe we can start the Wheel of Names and see who our winner is going to be.
So it seems like I killed the page right now. We will take a refresh.
So we might have to refresh that and start again, will we? An awful lot of names going in there by the looks of things. So technology, as always with these things, it's wonderful until it isn't. There we go. Click to spin or press Control and enter.
We will try it again.
Yeah, so we have to put the right number of, the right names. The people who did compete the Holiday Quest here, they're the ones that go in there. And there you see all the names going in there. And we have a winner. That was very, very quick there. Egil Solstad from Norway will be joining us in Eidsfjord on the starting line at the back of the ferry. He will make that jump a bit forward, 4 meters down into the water, and his race will start right there. Congratulations, Egil. Congratulations to Amy, who will also be joining us from the UK. How are the preparations going for 2022 at the moment, Doug? Has it been difficult? Because the pandemic, of course, is still going on, right?
Pandemic is still very much going on in Norway, as I think with the rest of the world. But I think with the news from the last couple of days, it seems like everything will be peaking in just a few weeks. Mm-hmm. So we are planning for Norseman as normal for this year.
Yeah. So the ambition is to run the race much as it was in 2019 before any of this ever happened. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And in terms of what you're allowed to do at the moment and that kind of thing, have you had any contact with the Norwegian government? Because Norway has been a lot stricter than Sweden, for instance. You've had lockdowns there, COVID passports, etc., etc. Is there any rules in the race around vaccination, for instance?
At this point, we do not know what to expect this summer, but we do expect there will be most likely some guidance when it comes to vaccinations, at least when entering the country. On an event level, we're not sure, but most likely not.
I have this vision in my head of Novak Djokovic in one of the little hotels in Eidsfjord there, being locked away in a room there. So you haven't decided whether or not you're going to demand a vaccine passport or anything like that, no?
Nope.
That's one for future reference. And in the village itself, how have things been there? Has anybody from Norseman managed to obviously people would have been there in 2021 for the race and that. How has the village dealt with the pandemic? Has everybody there survived okay in terms of businesses and that?
On our start side with Eidsfjord, they seem to have been almost unaffected by the pandemic when it comes to people living there. Of course, tourism has been affected. The the normal cruise traffic has been missing. But on the positive side, there has been a lot of Norwegians traveling domestically. So the demographics of the tourism has been different. But the word from the local businesses has been that the season has been far shorter the last 2 years, because it's so much connected to when Norwegians are taking their holidays.
And if we zoom out again a little bit, Dag, because you spent so much time over the last 2 years talking about the pandemic and the effect that it's had on the race, and Alan doing the race on his own and the limited race last year. Athletes who are watching this tonight who are going to be taking part in the race for the first time, what should they be thinking of at the moment in terms of their preparations? Because obviously they have to get as close to Eidfjord as possible. They have to book accommodation and that kind of thing. Is that just sort of go to hotels.com and find somewhere to stay?
Eidfjord is an interesting place to find accommodation, because you have so many options when it comes to both Airbnb and small campgrounds, private cabins, a couple of very good hotels. So there's plenty of options, but it's also a very sleepy place in winter. So a lot of the accommodation won't even have opened yet for booking. So we have athletes calling us now, being worried about accommodation, and we tell them this usually works itself out come spring and summer.
Yeah. And what happens then? I mean, I'm very lucky in that you and me have been good buddies for many years now. So you tend to get me a room not too far from the start line. But are there surrounding villages? Are there places close by? If you don't get a room in Eidfjord, can you find somewhere to stay? And can you make it then to the start line in good time on the morning of the race?
Yeah. Within 30, 45 minutes drive, there are usually plenty of accommodation available. We have people staying in the whole vicinity for the race. Of course, it's nicer to stay close to the start line, but there are also very good places within a reasonable drive.
And are the people of Eidfjord and of Gaustatoppen, are they looking forward to getting back to normal? I'm sure you've been in touch with the hotel there just at the foot of the mountain. Are they looking forward to the return of Norseman?
I think everyone is. It's not just us and our local communities, but I think the world is ready for more normal days moving forward.
Yeah. Hopefully now we'll be joined very, very shortly by Stuart McGuinness he's the CEO of the X-Tri World Tour, and we'll be able to talk to him a little bit about there. I see him popping up on my screen now as we speak, and we're just going to find out about what they are going to be doing. Is there anything else that we need to tell the viewers about the 2022 Norseman before we let you go, Dag Oliver?
No, I think our message for our 2022 athletes, which most of them actually got their starting slots fall of 2019. So they
should be well prepared by now, right?
They should be well prepared by now, but even so, often you're not. You've been shoving this ahead of you. So it's just get into training in a safe manner. Do not overtrain. That's our number one reason for people not showing up to the race start, is basically getting injured while training. So we say, make sure you're safe from COVID, and make sure you're trained in a safe way, and we'll be there ready to greet you when you come.
We most certainly will. General Manager of the Norseman race, Dag Oliver, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're going to switch you out now, and we're going to bring in the Scottish kingpin of X-Tri himself, the CEO of the X-Tri World Tour. Stuart McGuinness is joining us. Stuart, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, Philip. How are you?
I am marvelous, and I'm all the better for speaking to you, my friend, because it means that nature is healing when we're out swimming and biking and running through it again. Could you just start, maybe, Stuart, by telling us a little bit about what the impact of COVID has been on the X-Tri World Tour? Because I'm imagining you weren't able to continue as normal over the last 2 seasons, right?
No, in fact, we postponed almost every event we had. In 2020, we ran one tiny event in Montenegro. They were able to run it in a national park, because the Montenegrin rules stated that the national park didn't have any rules. So
like sovereign territory.
As long as you were in the national park, you didn't have to have a mask. You could do what you wanted. So they managed to run a small event there, which was good fun. And then 2021, we've gradually come back to normal. We hope that this year we'll have a full program, though.
You know, it's an awful question to ask a CEO, but how have you managed to survive through this? Because I mean, unfortunately, I see where I live here in Sweden, there's a lot of businesses have gone to the wall. How have you managed to keep going? I'd imagine there's a few generous sponsors there who've been very kind to you over the time.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. And actually, one of the things we'll do just now is with our little draw, we created a virtual series called My X-Tri, where we were very successful with getting people to do just like Norseman with their holiday quest. But we did it throughout the entire period of the last 2 years. We've had all sorts of challenges going on, and people from all over the world have been joining in to do that. So we've had some real success with that. Yes, and
is that something that you've asked people to contribute like an entry fee to, or that kind of thing?
Yes, exactly. There's a small entry fee, but they get a T-shirt at the end of it as well. So it's not, and then they have months of activities. And in fact, we did a collaboration with Otilo from Sweden, who you know very well, and you'll be able to pronounce it than I can.
I'm not going to do that live on air, my friend, but I'll take your word for it.
But actually, with that challenge, we gave away a paid slot for one of our races and one of their races every month.
Wow.
So we really had the motivation there and the kind of kickback for people. So their small entry fee went quite far.
That's great to hear. So you've been able to keep, have you noticed, you know, there's always going to be a drop off when you can't have people physically there taking part in your races, you're going to have a drop off. But we noticed with products like Peloton, we noticed with people, you know, being on treadmills and gyms with masks on. Have you noticed that there's still an engagement in the sport of triathlon? There's still people that are interested and that want to take part in your races now when things go back to normal?
Absolutely. And I think that's with us doing these we called them non-virtual because we want people to go outside. We didn't really want them to go on treadmills, etc., unless necessary. Some places were locked down, so they had to, of course. But by keeping them engaged in that and getting them to send us nice photographs and to log all their distance or their height or whatever else, then we've really kept people engaged with our particular section of triathlon. And we see the demand hasn't dropped off at all for the races. Definitely not. In fact, they're eager to get back.
And is this something that you can maybe do going forward, that you can continue this sort of non-virtual world and also the races that were previously part of the X-Tri World Tour?
I think so. Obviously, we did it again for this winter because in winter time, people tend not to do as much as they do in the summer. So we've seen a drop off in numbers for the virtual challenges for sure, but they're still there. There are still many people who are engaged with us, but really we want them to come back to the real events. We want the life back, the social aspect.
Definitely. I mean, we keep saying that, you know, I'd rather be swimming in Eidfjord is one of the taglines that we use all the time. And there's so much joy to be had from meeting people at a start line or that kind of thing, you know, the camaraderie that goes with being part of this sport, you know. But I did want to ask you about the people that were taking part in your virtual or non-virtual events and the people that take part in your actual races. Is the overlap there 100%, or are there people who are just discovering the sport through these things because they needed something to do during the pandemic?
I think the overlap is pretty big. We certainly had a loyal audience that we were able to engage in that. So the overlap is, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's pretty high. The numbers are pretty high. Hopefully people are discovering us through that medium as well. But as we always say, we want them to come and experience the events and the locations and everything else we have to offer.
Tell me a little bit more about the events, the locations, and the things that you have to offer in 2022. What will be the first race of the season on the calendar this year?
It's in Nepal, so it's Himalayan, which is a new race for us. So this has now been postponed 2 or 3 times over the past couple of years. So we have a test race in Nepal May the 7th. So that's going to be an incredible location for us. You know, that's kind of key to what we do now, is to find these stunning locations. It started in Eidfjord and it's moved around to the Highlands, to the Alps, to Patagonia, but now we're going to the Himalayas.
How many races are going to be on the X-Tri World Tour calendar this year?
There'll be 16 full distances, and we've also introduced a new concept, a half distance, which is called Solo 0.5. So we've created very, very difficult half distance races to give people a taste of the extreme, but with a slightly shorter distance. So there'll be 2 of them and 16 full distance races.
That's incredible. Actually, one of the things I forgot to mention just a little bit earlier on, I'm going to give it a quick mention now, is that there's a master's class in the summer of 2022. When we talked earlier on to Arild, that there is a master's class coming up, so you can learn a little bit more. You can be subject to some triathlon coaching, and you can find the details of that are going to be on nxtri.com 2021. So if you go in and have a look at that, you can find out the details of it. These different distances, Stuart, are they shorter distances just to make it more accessible to people?
Well, there's 2 things there. One is that as you've discussed all night, the big important part of Norseman and X-Tri is that you have a support crew. And that's a huge part of the event and of your experience. But it does alienate some people from being able to come to the event because it's more expensive to travel. They need to find the support. They need to train with the support. They need to make sure that they're of the similar standard. So we know that people are looking for something a little bit more accessible. So for the half distances, which are approximately half, we've removed the need for support crew, which actually makes it harder because they don't have mum giving them their sandwiches halfway through the race. And we've made them really, really tough. So there's a load of ascent. Obviously, we're going to be in tough weather conditions, cold water, a real flavour of X-Tri, but in a shorter distance.
Is there ever a risk that, I mean, it sounds to me that you're still trying to make it as difficult as possible, but you're not going to water down the concept at all. This is for, we say at Norseman, this is not for you. You're looking for people who are really prepared to go the extra miles.
We're looking for people who are prepared to challenge themselves. Yes, we don't want to make it easy. And that's why we've resisted having a half distance for so long, because we felt it would undermine the concept of extreme triathlon. But actually, we need more athletes. There are a limited number of people who can do a full distance extreme triathlon. And the way to get more people in there is to give them access to something a little bit easier. A little bit.
I'm not going to. Easier is your word. I can just describe it as shorter and leave it at that.
A little bit shorter.
You mentioned 16 races there, Stuart, starting in Nepal on May the 7th in the Himalayas. That even the sound of that, I just want to see whatever comes out of that. What are the other races? What are some of the other great locations that people can take part in the X-Tri World Tour?
Well, a number of our more our original races from the beginning, Keltman in Scotland, Swissman in Switzerland. Actually, the Patagonian race is open now for entries. And in Italy, these races sell out. We have to use a ballot system like Norseman do on a slightly smaller scale. But we still have races in Spain, in Sweden, in Montenegro, and in Taiwan. Our website has a whole list to get me to remember 16 races. It's not that hard, really, is it? But a full calendar and every one of the locations has been chosen because it's so special. So there's a multiple choice. And actually, the important thing here with the relevance to Norseman is all of our races are Norseman qualifiers, World Championship qualifiers. So there are 2 slots for men and 2 slots for women who win the races, who go to Norseman. And we also have 4 wild cards, 2 male, 2 female, for finishers of any of our races as well.
Okay, those wild cards, is that Stuart McInnes, CEO of X-Tri, who goes, I'm going to pick this person, I'm going to pick that person, or are they?
No, it's totally transparent, Philip. Go on.
Lovely.
It's actually done. Anyone who finishes the races, and some of our races are like Norseman, they have a black and a white T-shirt or a low and a high course, depending on the race. So anyone who finishes any of those courses is raffled to have a spot in Norseman. So they could be last and still get a spot in Norseman. So it's a really fair system. And it's 50-50 split between male and female.
Fantastic. And I mean, it is one of those things, because Norseman is one of the most popular races in the world, that, this could very well be like, if you go out there and you win one of the X-Tri World Tour races, then you're there. You don't have to worry about draws or anything else like that. You're in. Your ticket is booked.
You're in, and actually, because some of our races are limited by size, by location. For example, our Slovakian race is in a national park. They're only allowed 100 athletes. So once you have 100 athletes starting, you might have 75 finishing. If you're a female, there might be 10 of you, and there's 4 slots available. Then your chances of going to Norseman as a female participant racing in Slovakia are really, really high. So it's a good incentive to go and do one of these races.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good deal to me, because I do know that, every time we do Norseman live, and we're really appreciate all the people who are joining us live here and watching this broadcast this evening, where every time we do it, I'm going to get at least 10 emails afterwards going, can you have a chat with Doug and see if I can get a place?
Get me a spot in Norseman.
I know people offering you their firstborn children, go, there you go, please.
But they've never met Dag, have they?
No, exactly. I'm just going to send them to you, Stuart McInnes, and you can join in. You're a better chance rather than emailing to me.
No,
Stuart McInnes. Don't bother emailing them. What you need to do is you need to apply for one of his races at xtri.com. That's where you're going to find
xtriworldtour.com.
Sorry, xtriworldtour.com is where you'll find all the details of those 16 races starting on May the 7th. And if nothing else, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant sport. There's such wonderful settings to take part in. No more than Norseman. It's just such an epic race because of where it takes place and the surroundings. All of these races.
Don't forget, Philip, before you chuck me out, we have a slot to give away
Oh, I was just about to get to that. You know, so
well,
there is a
okay. I know you don't forget things, but just in case.
No, we were just about to get to that, but I just wanted to give one last push to the X-Tri World Tour. Like, you know, I know everybody's watching this because they love the Norseman race, but there's so many great races out there. If you don't make it into Norseman, and this is one of the greatest ways of making it into Norseman, is to win one of the races on the X-Tri World Tour. And look at who doesn't want to win a race on the World Tour? I'm even thinking that, you know, it might be time to come out of retirement now. But before I do that, Stuart, as you say, we have a couple of spots in a race to give away. Can you just explain to the viewers what it is we're giving away?
Yeah, just one spot. It's the culmination of the Otelo X-Tri World Tour event, which went for 10 months. So each month we gave away a spot for one Otelo race and one X-Tri World Tour race. And then the final month was an Otelo spot and a Norseman spot. So the Otelo one is gone. We did that online. The Norseman one, we still have to draw. So that's what we're going to do now. So it's one spot for any of the competitors. They have their number of chances is based on the number of months that they reported. So some people are in the draw 8 times, some are in twice, 3 times, whatever. So
yeah, and so this is people who've taken part in your sort of virtual/non-virtual events over the last couple of years, right?
Correct, yes.
Super.
Yes.
How are we going to do this draw? Do you have a hat with all the names in it there?
No, I have a wheel of names.
A wheel of names. The painted Dag Oliver wheel of names. Do you want to share your screen there because the excitement
yes, I'll do
too
that.
much?
No let's get that
Lovely.
one up here.
I love the wheel of names.
It's all ready to go. What we did do though was we removed the country data. Probably that was a mistake, but we can guess by the names what land they're from when we do this.
Not to wait, and we have an awful lot of people in there as well, which is fantastic to see from various different countries.
Are you ready? Or shall I just give this a whack? Yeah.
Just click the spin there, and we'll put these lovely people out of their misery. Congratulations to everybody who did manage to get into this draw. That in itself is
is it me? No, Alexander Hausman.
There we go. So we have Alexander Hausman is our winner. Looks like a bit of a German name. Could be Norwegian. You never know. Could be Swedish. Looks a little bit Germanic to me, though. So Alexander Hausman wins the very last spot in the Norseman for 2022, if I'm not mistaken. It's been absolutely brilliant. Stuart, I can't wait to see what you're going to throw at us now. I really hope that, you know, send out the video crews and Robbie and everybody that you got there, and Paul in Yalo, and send us back the fantastic video. I can't wait to see what you're going to do in Nepal there. The best of luck with your season, and thanks very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Philip. Good stuff.
There you go. That was Stuart McInnes, who is the CEO of the X-Tri World Tour. Like I say, 16 races there in some tremendous locations. That's almost all that we have time for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow morning, we are getting back to work after having all this fun here this evening. We're going back to work to bring you the biggest and the best Norseman race that you have ever seen. But in the meantime, let's not forget where we've come from over the last couple of years. Not so long ago, our race consisted of a single competitor, our signal to the world that we would be back when the time is right. That time is now, and we're grateful to Alan Hovda for reminding the world of what it is we do and why we love it so much. Enjoy this film, recalling the time he did Norseman solo back in 2020, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon. Go safely, my friends.
It was an incredibly hard day, and it was a day I learned a lot from, but I probably won't do it again.
Coming back to Eidfjord always brings back so much memories. I've done Norseman 8 times, and every time been a completely different experience. Tomorrow I'm doing Norseman solo. Just me, no one else. doing the race I do every year. 2020 has been a different kind of year, but I'm still doing Norseman.
On a regular Norseman, it's buzzing. You have like this extreme, like tense vibration of excitement of hundreds of athletes and supporters. Now it's just me. Conditions today, just perfect.
The jump was the jump as normal, just quite a short one. And then you just got in the water and felt the same cold water as always, and started to swim. The swim was magnificent. Swimming alone in Eidfjord, it's beautiful. So the swim was very pleasant, but cold. The swim exit and transition was a bit of a surprise for me. Normally when you get out of the water, there's they put sand over the rocks and you have a crew helping you out of the water. Without it, it was really difficult to actually get out of the water. It was difficult to get the balance. It was painful to stand on the sharp rocks. And then when you finally got out of the water, I got to transition and was cold, very cold, and had little feelings in my fingers. And especially my cycling jersey, I was not able to zip it up. So normally I use 1.5 minutes in transition in a regular Norseman with support. And unsupported, I use 14 minutes. So that came as quite as a shock for me. And my gloves, I wasn't able to put them on, so I gave up and put them in a backpack and had to just start cycling, and I put them on at a later place when feelings back in my fingers. Which of course without gloves took longer time. Cycling up Børingfossen alone, you can, for the first time, I could listen to the sounds of birds. And the weather was just perfect over the Hardangervidda plateau. All you can hear is your bike and your breath and the wind crossing your head. But then it starts to get lonely. When you're out on the run, running for 20 kilometers all alone along the lake, it can be quite monotonous, and then you turn around the corner and you see the mighty mountain. It looks like an insane elevation. You think it's like it can just be Mount Everest, and it's like it's no way I'm getting up that mountain. If you've never been to Zombie Hill, then it's difficult to know why they call it Zombie Hill and why it's so known for the competitors. But immediately when you hit it, you know, because it's super steep and it just lasts forever. The super steep hill.
It's getting closer to the finish line. Only 2 more kilometers of the really steep stuff, and then it flattens a bit out before we can cruise into the start of the mountain.
When I climb Zombie Hill, I try to have as short goals as possible, and try to motivate myself with like run for 9 minutes, walk for 1. Run for 9, walk for 1. So I try to avoid looking at how far I have left and how far I have left after I'm done with Zombie Hill. With the lack of support and people cheering you on, it doesn't get easier for sure. When I was running up the last corner of Zombie Hill, there's even no Team Bob. Of course, they weren't there, and I knew they weren't there, but they were still missed. When you enter the gate at Stavsø, at Norseman, there's a big sign that Norseman is going on, and there's a crew who check your bag for safety reasons. Other people, the tourists in the mountain, know that the race is ongoing, and they stop and cheer you along the road. At Norseman solo, you enter it solo. You're just running on the path there like a crazy guy in a strange looking outfit. It was really nice because it wasn't an actual race, because in the regular races I'm running with as hard as I can, and I only focus on the few meters in front of me so I don't misstep, or because then your race can be over. But now I had enough time I could even stop and take a look around and just enjoy the absolutely stunning surroundings when going up the mountains. It was nice to get over the finish line, but compared to the normal Norseman, it's like a good 1/10 of the emotions when you cross the finish line.
And Alan Hovda wins the Norseman for 2018.
Alan Hovda, what an amazing race! You're on Norseman Live. Congratulations.
I definitely miss my family. And my non-existing supporters.
So it would be nice to get back to them.
The finisher prize for doing Norseman solo is not a black t-shirt. There's no award ceremony. But I got a waffle. And it was the best waffle I tasted in my whole life. But don't say that to grandmother. But I did truly miss my support. I miss the spectators. I miss the crew. I miss the vibe from the race. I miss my competitors. But most of all, I miss the highlight of the year, the buffet at Gaustablikk.